This is False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer, fanside.com. As you can see, I am flying solo like a cup once again, although I did run into Cody Williams, content director, fanside.com, and the delightful Antonio Banderas. Things may have gotten out of hand at the Fansided Summit there in Phoenix on Wednesday night. I thought things were going to be good, but I'll talk about that here a little bit later. But we'll definitely have Cody back on the show on Monday, and still have a really exciting episode planned for you guys. I appreciate the patience and the cooperation. We had like our first summit with the company here in about 3 years. A lot of new faces, a lot of familiar faces. Very exciting and positive time. Cody and I will definitely talk about that a little bit more on Monday's show. Things that we saw, things that we experienced, laughed, cried. We basically did everything that Jim Valvano said was important about being a human being in one day. Had basically 4 or 5 really fulfilling days. But Antonio, he drives to the ditch, and so are we. And we're gonna get started here with our first and 15 with keep coming. Somebody check Andrew Luck's brand because he hired Frank Reich, who I don't think's brand works anymore. He's going to be serving as the interim head coach of the Stanford Cardinal for one season before they conduct a thorough search and hire a longtime full-time head coach. We saw a similar situation happen not that long ago at Baylor in between the Art Briles scandal and Matt Rule, with former legendary Wake Forest head coach Jim Grobe filling in for the time being. It was interesting that this is how it came about because probably the most interesting thing I would say is Frank Reich wasn't even a candidate for this job. We saw everybody saying, okay, is it going to be Jason Garrett? Are you going to be able to pry Stanford alums like Tavita Pritchard and Troy Walters from the NFL to come back to alma mater? Could you get Troy Calhoun to leave his alma mater of Air Force? Could you convince Chris Peterson to leave the booth there at with Fox and come back and coach in the West Coast again? But no, they decided to go with Frank Reich, and this is like the first series of tough decisions that Andrew Luck has had to make as Stanford's football general manager. Keep in mind they do not have an athletic director right now. I believe like Bernard Muir resigning, it goes hand in hand with Troy Taylor being terminated and the scandal that's emerging from that. So I'm okay with, Andrew Luck bringing in, one of his former Colts head coaches to run the ship here for a year while they just try to get through it. But like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Stanford. They've become an interesting program now after being the most boring Power Four of last year. But you gotta wonder, like, you're better than this. Like you're so much better than this. Like, okay, Andrew Luck is a day younger than me. My high school classmate Chase Thomas was in the same recruiting class with him at Stanford. I played lacrosse with Chase. I played baseball with Chase. Like we were on the same lacrosse line. We played travel ball together. He was an All-American for Stanford. So I grew up seeing Stanford become something so amazing under Jim Harbaugh and continued through David Shaw. And then somehow you lost your way. Maybe David Shaw wasn't ready for the NIL of it all. Maybe he wanted a new opportunity. Seems to be thriving there in his new role as part of George Payton's front office staff there in Denver. But Stanford is just like it's become such an afterthought. I understand that academically it's really challenging to get people in and ready to go, but like we've seen Stanford football be very competitive not that long ago, and not only do you have to like get a new head coach, you have a new GM, you need a new athletic director, you're playing in a new conference that's on the complete opposite side of the country. It's so many things working against you, and I'm really concerned. But I think that as Stanford is, it's essentially what they're saying is we're going to punt on 2025 in the effort of getting it right by 27 or 28 by making the right hire in 26. I'm like right before this all happened with Troy Taylor being ousted and Frank Reich coming in. Um, the big thing is like, Andrew Luck. I was like, I don't know if he's going to have it in him to make tough decisions, to make hard calls, to be a bit of an ass because even though the Colts kind of ragged on him, he didn't push back. He wasn't a dick like Peyton Manning was during his playing day and being utterly demanding. I mean, I understand that everybody's personality is different, but like what we saw with Luck, that contributed partially to why his career ended so early. He got hurt. Yes, you can't control that, but be like, no, this whatever you're putting in front of me to block is not working. And this is alma mater. He's the College Football Hall of Famer. Andrew Luck's never going to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he only played for like 6 years. But like he's a legend. He's one of the best college players I covered or followed along with. My peer, like it's Andrew Luck and Freddie Freeman, a day younger than me. September 12th, 1989 is when they were born. So I hold those two athletes in very high standards because of that. And I don't know. But I will say though, like we'll talk about Frank Reich here. Like obviously this broke as we were landing in Phoenix for our conference, and obviously it's still the biggest topic right now in college football. It's so juicy, it's so multifaceted. So I'm talking to a lot of my fan-sided and minute media colleagues, and many of them are like, "Dude, Frank Reich's cooked." Like we saw how poorly it ended for him with the Colts, and then he didn't even make it through his 1 year at the Panthers. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was the first starting quarterback in Carolina Panthers history for 3 games, and I think they went to Steve Berline after that back in '95, and David Tepper didn't care. He let him go. It just I know I always joke about it. Like he's the kind of guy that's going to fastball his wife. Like we're just driving on the interstate, and then we're going to go off into a ravine somewhere because he's just lost it up there. And maybe, yes, that is a little bit tongue in cheek. Yes, we are kind of we're joking around with that, with like mental deterioration. It's obviously a very frightening and frustrating thing for anybody that's going through it. But like, we're not asking we're asking to be a head coach too. Like, you don't have to do this. You play the NFL. You were backup for the Bills forever. Like, you have you're a Maryland legend. You have so many good things going for you. Do you really need to take this on? And I think if, in a positive sense here, I think Reich, like Andrew Luck was like saying, I really need you, coach. And I think that shows I've never had any problem with Frank Reich's character. Very upstanding man, a man of faith, a man who his players do play hard for. And maybe this will be exactly what Stanford needs. Similarly with, Jim Grubb going to Baylor. Like everybody my age remembers like the what '06 Wake Forest Demon Deacons who won the ACC with Riley Skinner at quarterback. And that team was super fun, super out of nowhere. Obviously, we saw some later success there with Dave Clawson in the years to come, but like that was the only time I remember Wake football being anything growing up. And that was a fun team to play with on college football and everything back in the day. But like we have seen this before. We may see Stanford like maybe win a few more games than expected, but this is a program and this is a team that has gone 3-9 in back-to-back seasons. When I was like coming out of high school, it was at the bottom of the Pac-10. And when I left college, it was at the top of the Pac-12. And now they're at the very bottom of the ACC with Wake. And look, they're competing for the same group of players that Wake Forest, Duke, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, you name it, where it's like academic power. Occasionally we can have a decent football team, but there's just not enough guys out there who are good enough football players and solid enough academically to succeed at that. And Andrew Luck was that for sure. He's like an architecture major. I mean, most of these guys, like most people that are football players, like they're doing some sort of like broadcast journalism. Some of them are doing like communications. Some do business. Some do like housing and economics and stuff like that. They're not doing like ridiculous. They're not going to a lab for like a major. Justin Herbert did with biology and stuff like that. But it's certainly interesting. Okay, I'll try to finish with something positive about this with Frank Reich, with Stanford and Andrew Luck and everything. It does put more eyeballs on the situation at hand in Palo Alto, and it's going to give them a longer runway to get this right. I feel that they were kind of blindsided with David Shaw saying, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then they leaned into like getting Troy Taylor. I'm like, oh, he had a lot of success there at nearby Sacramento State. Yes, he played at Cal, but whatever, who cares? I think he understands the region. I just feel like there was like a leap up that he was not quite ready for. And I think that like maybe Shaw didn't leave it in the best place. It's tough because he's one of us, like or one of them. Like he played there, a very well respected guy. No one's really got like a lot of anything bad to say about David Shaw. But like we've seen, you know, people leave. Derek Mason left, and that kind of knocked them down a little bit as a program. Really, the big one is when Mike Bloomgren left for Rice. That's really when I think the program took a turn for the worse. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey. It certainly downticked after that for him a little bit. They've had players. You've had what Davis Mills, Tanner McKee at quarterback, and everything like that. But it's I hope that they get this right because you want to see as many West Coast brands that could be good to make the sport more national. And I understand Stanford does not have the biggest brand out there, but when Stanford football is good, it's a very exciting thing to watch. There's a very cohesive way with which they play. They play hard. They play aggressive. They play very smart and fast above the shoulders and everything like that. But athletically, they take care of themselves. And you want to see people who are all in, doing everything that they can to be the best at what they're doing. And I always kind of felt like growing up and even in college and stuff, like Stanford was a shining example of excellence of what it looks like to be a student athlete in the 21st century. So yeah, Frank Reich. That's a little interesting there, but so is this. We're gonna move on to our next topic with some talk portal to me. Drew Pyne is the new JT Daniels as he leaves Missouri for his fourth college football team. Drew Pyne, from the well-to-do Pyne family from somewhere in Connecticut, has played at Notre Dame, Arizona State, and Missouri. He went to Mizzou last year. He backed up Brady Cook. And I think with Bo Pribula coming over from Penn State, we thought that there may be a more interesting challenge there. But I think that they're going to go with the former Penn State backup over Pyne. I think I'm not really going to spend a whole lot of time on this other than it's kind of funny that like he's just going from one school to another. But I think like we're going to start talking about this when it comes to like recruitment and everything like that or transfer portal like the Drew Pine line. Like that's what I'm going to call it. Like if a player is the name recognition of Drew Pine or better, we're going to talk about it with transfer portal. If it's less, we're not going to. It's kind of like what was it that we used to call like there's different ones like there's the Ken Anderson line where like if you're as good as Ken Anderson was or better, you're going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer quarterback. If you're worse, you're not. The Derek Carr line, if you are better than Derek Carr was at his peak, um, then like you're going to be the quarterback who resets the market. If you're worse, you'll get paid, but you won't reset it. And obviously these dynamics change and everything like that. But the Drew Pine line might be a thing where maybe there's like a blue chip prospect. Maybe Malachi Nelson eventually becomes this. But like there's guys that we talk about in the transfer portal who weren't like the biggest recruits. Like I don't remember John Mateer at Washington State. Cam Ward went to Incarnate Word. Fernando Mendoza, very under recruited. Couldn't even go to Miami. Had to go play at Cal. That was Indiana. But Pine, like it checked the box. I think the Notre Dame thing had a few starts there, a little bit at ASU. I think the thing is, I think it goes back to the same thing. I think level of comp out of high school is such a big deal. It's so important because like you wonder how this is going to translate to college football. And that's where I think people like where my biggest thing with like recruitment for high school, particularly the quarterback position. Look, there are fantastic players who played at like really prestigious like private schools, like the smaller schools like in your state and whatnot. And I've had a lot of success. But like growing up in Georgia in the Metro Atlanta area, like if you're playing at like 5A or 6A, like public school, high school football, you're going to be going up against like a lot of really talented teams. I'm much more inclined to think from a Georgia perspective, I'm much more inclined to think very highly of a four-star player from Parkview High School than I am a five-star player from Pace Academy. That's not to say that like that doesn't matter, but I always think of that in the back of my mind because I think Pine kind of checks that box. Like, oh, he's a four-star, whatever, blah 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 blah, and like wasn't really wasn't really competitive there at Notre Dame. wasn't really competitive there at ASU, wasn't really competitive there at Missouri. Like it was very clear every time he was in for the Irish, the Devils, or the Tigers, he was clearly the second best quarterback there. We saw this happen with Brock Vandagriff at Georgia. Like playing like one star. Always if he's always got offers from Georgia and Oklahoma, he can really sling it. I'm like, he doesn't throw with any touch. And that's why he retired after was 1 year to start at Kentucky. It stinks, but it happens. But I think who you play against in high school is a very strong indicator of what you can do at the college level. Maybe somewhat more like in college, where like if you're playing against G5 level, you may not be able as good as someone at the Power Four, but like I think we grossly overlook level of comp coming out of high school. And I guess like the other thing with Drew Pyne hitting the portal again is like what kind of college experience are you having? And I was gonna have this interesting conversation with Cody about it today. Obviously, I went to University of Georgia and he went to University of North Carolina at Wilmington. Um, I have the big time Power Four football. His alma mater does not have a football team, but basketball program is really good. You're in a very interesting coastal city there in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I never once thought about transferring. Yes, we're 34, 33, 34, 35 years old and we're of a different age, but like it was always for me about doing what I needed to do to be able to stay at Georgia, to stay in Athens, Georgia, do just enough academically to keep my parents off my case and eventually graduate. Um, but like I always saw like I remember like a guy like transferred and came back. I'm like, what are you doing? But I understand that this is different. Like there's only so many positions like you can play in a college football team. And everybody thinks that like they're hot ass and they got to start right away because they've been told they're wonderful their whole life. And if it doesn't work out, they hit some adversity, oh, they got to transfer. And I'm okay with like the concept of this program may not be what you thought it was. The coach who says I'm never going to leaves it tomorrow. The vibes, maybe you hate the people that you were recruited with. I'm okay with that. People are allowed to like correct their decisions, but like the fact that you're just like you're program hopping at this point just clearly shows you have no idea what you're doing. And even more so, like what this is going to impact his life and other people's lives like this professionally beyond just football. Because he's not going pro in football. Like he's not like nobody's going to have him on a practice squad. Like he won't even get a undrafted free agent body. Maybe quarterback because they need one or something like that. But like I understand like in the business world, like it behooves people to job hop a little bit because you can like basically make more and more money. And that's fine, but like you're also selling your soul to do that in some ways. Like, you know, you're never really part of the team. You never fully unpack your bags. You're an opportunist and people can look at that resume and be like, you know what? He's just gonna leave me for 2 years. Hiring's expensive. You know, if we're gonna bring on like two new editors and three new staff writers, like on fanside.com, like Megan Melly, they've been saying her last name wrong. Mark Powell, Cody Williams, the main people who run .com, Ian Levy as well. Like they're gonna have to do a lot of homework with our HR department and everything like that to get these hires correct. And we made fantastic hires there at the end of September or early part, yeah, later September to bring in Quinn Everett's been saying that wrong, not Everett's, Everett's, Chris Landers and Winston Wilcox. So like, but that was a really long, thorough process to get three outstanding candidates and everything like that. But like, if you're just going from program to program, like, what happens when you're no longer a kid, you're no longer a student athlete, you know. Oh, I'm gonna go work for like a corporate Bank of America. Oh, I don't hate this. I'm gonna go work for Wells Fargo. Oh, I hate this. I'm gonna go work for JP Morgan Chase. By the time you're like 30, you've worked like four different places. Everyone's like, what are you doing? Like you're just job hopping from entry level to entry level. And I understand like I have made financial sacrifices to work at Fansided for as long as I have. Coming up the contributor route, living at home for far longer than I needed to. Staying here with knowing that there may be opportunities to make more somewhere else, but I've come up on 10 years. And by me being here for this long, it's allowed me to use what I went to school for. Finally, using my management background to my advantage. Being able to be a lead writer, being able to show people in the company that there is a career pathway for people who don't want to edit. Like, I'm going to edit this podcast, I'm going to edit the audio, clip this up, it's going to look great. but like I just don't have the patience to edit contributors' work. I want to focus on making full-time employees the best. That's really kind of what I want to do. But I know it kind of went more personal there, but like I feel bad for Drew Pyne. I really wish that like it would have worked out. I think going to Notre Dame may have set in motion like some tough stuff here. Like, you know, they thought that like they haven't really had a homegrown guy really start for them for any substantial period than Ian Book. They thought Tyler Buckner could do it, not really. And then they've kind of gone transfer heavy, with Sam Hartman, with Riley Leonard of late. And but that's why I'm pulling for Steve Angeli to win this at Notre Dame. Obviously, you go to Arizona State, first year with Kenny Dillingham and Jaden Rashada, whatever. But then Rashada is better than you. Now he's in the portal. He's looking at Western Kentucky or something like that. And then you go get Sam Levitt, who's dealing with like similar issues with the fallout of Mel Tucker and all that stuff up there at Michigan State. He comes in first year, wins the Big 12at ASU, looking like a serious NFL player. Uh, big time, big time player of that note as well. But yeah, let me flip across the screen here. Yeah, trying to come back in the work week on a Friday after you've been like across the country. That's great. I did sleep last night. Prior to that, I think, but it was only like 7 hours last night, and then a grand total of three. So if I'm cooked here, I'm sorry. Maybe I've got Frank Reich brain here. And on that note, we're gonna move on to our next topic. We're gonna pat the doc here. Very interesting little nugget here, and kind of ties in with the Stanford, the Troy Taylor of it all. Sacramento State has put forth a waiver to move up from FCS to FBS. And they're kind of trying to invite themselves into the party, like Aaron Rodgers did into the Steelers facility. Hey, I'm gonna invite myself. I'm gonna tour. And Steelers like, okay, great. Yeah, we're not going to be able to go visit Michigan on their pro day and get nothing on what Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, and Colston Loveland, who are all going to go in the first round. But I'll say this: Sacramento State has become a name at FCS the last few years, partially because of Troy Taylor. But look, I think this is a good thing in some ways because with realignment, with the Power Five becoming the Power Four, with the Pac-12 essentially taking a step down, and then the Pac-12 basically takes teams from the Mountain West, pretty much everybody with state in it, Colorado State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State, Utah State, pretty much everybody but San Jose State. Then that leaves the Mountain West open to have more teams come in. And if SAC wants to like play at that level, I think that's great. I think as long as your athletic department wants to make that move up and everybody's in line, like, let's do it, let's go for it. I would love this. It's the same thing like Missouri State's like, I think we can compete. Delaware's like, I think we can compete. Kennesaw State, I think we can compete. Sam Houston, I think we can compete. First year is always rough, but like I'm always in favor of anybody in college football, any program with realignment or moving up, I guess that is realignment, if you will. If by moving up and saying like, you know what, I want to try to be better. I want to improve myself. This is a little bit above my skis, a little bit above my pay grade, but I'm not afraid. I think where you basically when you pull back or you do lateral moves, you lose your identity a bit because it's not a move made in confidence. And this is a very confident move because doing some reading about this, they don't have a bid to go anywhere. They'd compete as an FBS independent. And at this point, like how many independents do we have left? Like UConn, I guess, and Notre Dame, obviously. I think UMass is going back to the MAC. Then somebody else joined the league as well. But there could be opportunities in CUSA. There could be opportunities in the Mountain West. I don't know. I don't think the Sun Belt's really a fit there geographically, but who cares? Stanford and Cal play in the ACC, so whatever. Um, in that subject, in that sort of line of thinking, the other thing is, so I think it was like what UC Davis, or there was this other one that was like they're competing in the Mountain West in all sports but football, and if they were going to extend a bid to anybody like outside, like they have something in their clause with this, like they get in first. But like this is kind of a weird way where like SAC could theoretically like leapfrog them. Maybe this is a way for them to be like, okay, we want to do this. We're not going to wait on UC Davis to move ahead. I think it's UC Davis, if I'm not mistaken. But like, we're going to go ahead. We're not going to wait on somebody else. We're gonna make our own. It's ballsy. It's ballsy as hell. But I kind of respect it. And again, like I think in this new playoff era. where it's much more national in scope than it ever has been. I think we just got to get more teams that want to play at this level going on the West Coast. I'd love to see Montana, Montana State, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Idaho, teams like this that like I've known, Eastern Washington, like programs that I know about out west, like that could be good. They're not ready to move up, but if Sac State's ready to do it, then I'm all in favor of it, and I'd be remiss to think that like I don't know how it's going to work out for them initially, but for the most part, I would probably argue and say that but by being this assertive about it, you're going to be doing your homework, you're going to be doing your due diligence, you're going to be you're going to fail faster. And that's my big philosophy. I think what General Schwarzkopf used to say back in the day, we gotta fail fast because if we don't know, but as soon as we know, then we got to come up with another plan better because our lives are depending on it. In wartime, yes, and in our livelihoods are depending on it. Sacramento State's going into uncharted territory for the Hornets program, and they, how do I say this? Betting on themselves and having the confidence to do it, I respect the hell out of it, even though it does look a bit unorthodox. You're also wondering, like, is Tarleton State going to do this in Texas? That's another team we've talked about potentially moving up as well. They may not do it just yet, but like if you're ready, if Incarnate Word wanted to do it, that would be great too. I'd love to see more teams that are kind of operating on the fringes of FBS and FCS come aboard, and we can talk about them more and give more people opportunities to compete at this level. It may not be the level that like you and I can regularly consume it with the Power Four, but the Group of Five has plenty of great football too. And if Sac State wants to be a part of it, then I'm all for it. Moving on to a topic that I've been sitting on here for a while, and we're just going to roll with it. We're going to do some TIN10. Threw this out here in the channel here with Cody. I was going to power rank the 10 best head coaches currently at their alma mater. I think right now there are 17. So I'm going to list off who I have from 10 to 1 and kind of go through my logic with that real quickly on the to start off the second half of the show. So at number 10, I've got Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Had a really good season last year for Vanderbilt standards. Made a bowl game. You upset Alabama. You beat Auburn again. You went to a bowl game. Diego Pavia becoming the live dog before our very eyes once again. What I like about Clark Lee here is he, in conjunction with his high school friend Barton Simmons, former Yale football player, former you know, guy for 247 Sports and recruiting and everything like that. I think with Clark Lee there at Vanderbilt, he's got a very strong sense of who he is and what the Vanderbilt program is about and what it can be. I think everybody right now looks at Vanderbilt in the SEC as a team that's like, oh, they're feisty. Oh, they're feisty as hell. You don't want to have them on your schedule because, like, the minute you think that you got to win over them for sure, that's when they upset you. And that's what I always wanted Vanderbilt sports to be. I mean, what the men's team made the tournament, their baseball program was outstanding. Football team made a bowl game. Things are looking up there in Nashville. So yeah, I've got him over a slew of other head coaches as well, mostly because just the identity of self. Because at the end of the day, with Derek Mason, like he won a lot of games at Vanderbilt, mostly because he won games over Tennessee when Tennessee did not have its stuff together. And once Tennessee started to finally figure it out, then that kind of pulled back. The COVID year was just an absolute mess. The amount of hate that my dad has for Vanderbilt because of that, making a joke of college football there, um, it's an irrational fear or hate thing. I remember telling my colleagues like, yeah, my dad just does not care about Vanderbilt. I think it's also some people he used to work with went to Vanderbilt and he thinks they're a bunch of a-holes and everything like that. But I respect what Clark Lee is doing there with the Commodores program. Uh, yeah, feel very good about having him in the top 10. At number 9, I've got Mario Cristobal at Miami. This is this is probably the one name on this list that I wanted to talk about the most in terms of like what it actually means. I was working my way through this and I'm like, okay, like going through conference, okay, is this coach better than this coach? Is this coach better than this coach? And vice versa. And I was sitting there thinking, like, am I really about to have Mario be out of the top 10? We were damn close. Look, I think he's a fantastic offensive line coach. I think he's a fantastic recruiter. I think that he can galvanize his team, very much an EQ kind of guy, but he's like the offensive version of Coach O. I love me some Coach O. Coach O at LSU. The 2019 LSU Tigers is my favorite non-Georgia football team I've ever covered. I loved that team. That team beat the S out of Georgia and just unbelievable. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I mean, we had no idea that was going to be just three all-time players in college and then in the NFL. But with Mario, I've always kind of felt that like the quarterback play in a lot of instances is he holds it back. He held Justin Herbert back. We did see well, Tyler Van Dyke had a little bit of issues as well. We saw Cam Ward flourish, but that was kind of more about Shannon Dawson. And the Mario of it all, we always talk about this, him like you can't spell Mario if you give him all five letters. It's at the end of the day, he's going to make a stupid decision in a game that's going to cost his team considerably. This is the Georgia Tech knee 2 years ago, or not taking a knee, allowed the Yellow Jackets to go to a bowl game and get confidence and really start to build up what they're about under Brent Key, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Last year, you're like, okay, all you have to do is beat Syracuse to make the playoff. Yes, Syracuse is really good. Probably going to pull back considerably this year, but just not ready for the moment. Lost to Tech again. Like Miami probably should have won the ACC last year. That was their year to do it. They had the Heisman finalist. They got the guy who's going to be the number one pick by the Titans and Cam Ward at quarterback. Clemson wasn't quite there. SMU overachieved, and then Louisville had a tough schedule, couldn't have any defense. Florida State pulled back. You had a tremendous opportunity and blew it. But I will say though, I think with Mario, it's like there's some elite traits that he has, and there's some traits he has. It's like, should you even like manage a Dairy Queen? Like, there's things about this guy and that's why I have he's such a divisive character here. We all know he's great at a handful of things. We also know he's terrible at a lot of things too. And we find himself somewhere in the middle, which in reality, he's a good but not great head coach. That's fine, but is that good enough for Miami? Moving on up to number 8. Oh, I just mentioned him, Brent Key at Georgia Tech. This is a guy that I feel is exactly like Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. He's at a very tough academic school. A lot of things working against him at Georgia Tech. Obviously, arch rival Georgia is the traditional power at the top. It's not necessarily that like getting into Georgia Tech is not like ridiculous. Like if you can get into Georgia, you can get into Georgia Tech. It's the same thing when I was growing up, but like being able to stay in the major, they don't have an easy major to be in there. The easiest major is management, which is what I did at Georgia, and it's still challenging. But being able to have to pivot off whatever the buffoon and the rain nonsense stuff that was Jeff Collins, and then in the wake of like running a triple option offense under Paul Johnson, trying to find an identity. And he's like, I'm gonna go George O'Leary, Georgia Tech. And I loved me some George O'Leary, Georgia Tech. Like that was my team. Joe Hamilton, like that's what I'm talking about. Keith Brooking, like those guys. Luke Manje kicking footballs. Yes, I got a bunch of Georgia stuff behind me, but like whatever. That era of Georgia Tech football was outstanding, the 90s era. And then obviously I went to high school with the former defensive coordinator for Georgia Tech's son and Calvin Johnson and the whole Chan Gailey era of it all. But Brent Key just he has a pulse on what's going to work. He gets the buy-in from his players. He's able to recruit. He's able to make it not just a complete just nerd factory joke. Like you have a rich football history. You have won national titles. Heisman's there. Bobby Dodd's there. There's a lot of great things that this program has done, and there's like an emphasis there. And this is why Cody and I are like, yes, he's the NC State podcast was briefly the Georgia Tech podcast, but like there's reasons to think that like if somebody doesn't have their stuff together in the ACC, Georgia Tech can get back to being Georgia Tech in the ACC, like being a top 6 program. Like maybe there's not enough guys out there. Like if Georgia Tech's up, like Virginia Tech's got to be down. And that's kind of where there's the battle of the techs, if you will. But like, yeah, I would firmly say Georgia Tech's definitely going to be a top 7 team in the ACC next year. Could they get to Charlotte? Potentially. I don't think they're quite in the same class as Clemson, but beyond that, you're looking at the Louisvilles, the Miamis, the SMUs. You're right there, like Duke, like other programs like that who could be very interesting and viable. But I don't like Georgia Tech at all. Don't like the bees, but I respect what Brent Key is doing, and I think that that's a very that means that should mean a lot, not necessarily coming from me, but I think Kirby's smart and other people do that. Whereas nobody respected Jeff Collins. They respected Paul Johnson though, and we'll continue on with this. Moving on up to number seven, I'm going to go with Kalani Sitake there at BYU. Again, it's the same sort of thing where he just has a really good pulse of what's going on, similar to uh, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt and Brent Key at Georgia Tech. I think the difference is the winning is just more sustainable. BYU is a better program. And the thing is, like, it's BYU just has the best sense of self. I mean, you are Mormon Notre Dame. You are the LDS school of note. You recruit nationally. You're in Utah. There's a lot of players in Utah, more than you think, but like you got to get guys from all over the place, and you got to get people to want to play here and abide by the honor code, regardless of if they are LDS or not. And not that it matters or anything like that. I love the fact that BYU cares and they put together really great programs. They're fun. Uh, this is a team that I think could definitely make the playoff again. And I know entering last year, I thought about putting Kalani Sitake on the hot seat because I thought the move up to the Big 12 with their schedule was just too arduous, but they were ready for it. And this is a team that I've always thought like should have been Power Four, and they are. And they fit really well in the Big 12. They really do. It's a again, it's a bigger brand. It's probably one of the biggest brands in the Big 12. And there's still a power void at the top of it with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. And maybe they'll be able to galvanize it and fire and get towards the top. But like there's I think having a guy who has been there, who's played for Lavelle Edwards, an absolute icon in the sport, um, just the buy-in. I also think with Sataki, there's also like a cool calm factor with him. Doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. A little fired up on occasions, but like his demeanor, I respect it a lot, and I think that like his players respond to it, and makes him a really really good coach. That's why he's been there for a long time. Moving on up to number six, I've got Troy Calhoun at Air Force. Similar sort of things as Sataki. There's a lot of stuff. Like all these guys kind of have like the pulse of what it is. Troy Calhoun went to Air Force, former quarterback. Been there a long time. I mean, been there since '07. This is a guy, it's kind of like the Kirk Ferentz of offense. Well, Kirk Ferentz is an offensive guy, but that's neither here nor there. I think Troy Callahan's one of those coaches where, like, if he wasn't Air Force, he'd run a more like pro style offense. I mean, he was the OC of the Texans back in '06. They weren't good, but like he's worked with like Andre Johnson and guys like that too. Very difficult job. There are some years. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee here so I don't lose my voice. I got to do another podcast after this because I hate myself. But on that note, I love the audience out there. I got to be more empathetic with the starters. Shout out to Alicia, Michael, Rain of Troy, and everybody else becoming followers. We are pushing 40 right now. This thing is popping. Things are popping here on the fall start. Really trying to make some headway here. A lot of people really like the show, like the idea of it. This thing's going to be great. I love we got such a long runway to the season. I'm so excited about this. But anyway, I guess to kind of go back with the Troy Calhoun of it all. The reason I have got him at six over some of these other coaches is like these are hard jobs. Like you're at a service academy and you're recruiting the same sort of people that go to Navy and an Army, albeit two bigger brands than you. And then you've been playing like in the Mountain West for a long time. And then but I also kind of feel that like I mean, yes, the Falcons weren't a bowl team last year, but like they're consistently towards the top of the Mountain West. I feel like his ability to sustain excellence, given the circumstances, given the region, with what's going to happen, I've got a lot of respect for him. I think he's a fantastic coach, and if he wanted to move up to Power Four, like if he's the head coach at Stanford next year or 2 years, like that's who I wanted. That'd be great. We'll see what happens. I obviously getting someone to leave their alma mater is very difficult, but like he can make it work at a very difficult academic power. I think that like what he does translates. Moving on to the top half here, at number five, I have got Jeff Brom at Louisville. Massive Jeff Brom fan. I think Cody would agree with this as well. This is a guy who is doing great things at Louisville now, did incredible things at Purdue. Purdue was awful before he got there and is awful now. It's like the only other thing I can really compare it to is what Joe Tiller was with like Drew Brees and stuff, and Kyle Orton in that era, late early to mid 2000s and stuff like that. But like the Daryl Hazel like, era, awful for the Boilermakers. But Ryan Walters, got that one so wrong. But Jeff Brom, I feel the other thing is he's also made Louisville likable. When's that ever happened? Everybody that's ever worked there is usually slimy. Rick Pitino, Bobby Petrino, Scott Satterfield, Kenny Payne, just a mess. But he's got that right pulse. He's got a good understanding about Louisville. And I think it's offense is always great. I don't know if the defense is ever quite there, but I think quarterbacks trust him. There's guys who are like, I maybe not have much left in me, but I'm gonna try. Tyler Shuck, trust him. Aiden O'Connell, trust him to go to the NFL. We'll see what happens here this year with Miller Moss. And I'm getting dangerously high on Louisville this year. I think they might play Clemson in the ACC championship. I think Miami's got more of a longer runway than them, if you will. But I'd probably go and say that like I guess to not put my phone on the charging pad for all that great here. But I just feel that like the ability to make people root for you in situations where a lot of people don't, I think that shows a lot about your character, your coaching chops, and your acumen. And I think the longer he stays at Louisville, the better the football team's going to be. Like he's going to win the ACC at some point. He's going to make the playoff. He's going to win a playoff game or two. I don't know if Louisville has the I don't know what the right word is, if you will. Like I don't know if they've got the trajectory to like get to like the Final Four or whatnot, but they love their athletics there in Louisville, Kentucky, and they've got a head coach they should be really proud to have back there. Moving on to number four, I have Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Again, he's only in there his second year, but what he did this past year is simply undeniable. And I think more importantly, just the want. Just like, I mean, his playing career ended in college. He's my peer. Obviously, he's been around as an OC, both at Auburn and Oregon, and then going back to ASU. I thought this job was going to eat him alive. And then I've been so wrong about this. Arizona State, he's awoken the sleeping giant. And I'm not saying that they need to go make the playoff again, but they want to, if this is now a program that's capable about winning 8 games or more a year, and then you have those pop years where you win 11 or 12, then like you've made another region of the country with so many great players there in the Valley of the Sun and Tucson, extended. I was just in Arizona. Love that place. Great place to be. It's a little hot, but who cares? Also, it hailed. That was wild. Colder there than in Atlanta for a time being, but Kenny Dillingham just having a very strong sense of who he is and what he does. Very demanding. I think also the fact that so many guys are returning. Yeah, you got to lose Cam Scatterbo to the draft, but you get Udo coming in from Army to replace him. Levitt's back. I mean, this is gonna be one of the most fun teams in the country. A very fun team to root for. Forks up. There you go. Moving on to number three, I've got Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Terrible year last year for the Pokes and Gundy, but I'm looking at it as the whole. What you have to remember about Oklahoma State is historically it's just not been the best program, but under Gundy and when Gundy's been around, Oklahoma State has forced itself in the conversation of being like one of the best jobs that you cannot win a national title at. You're a tier below Auburn. You're in that group with like Michigan State, maybe Washington now, and then that's good company. You're looking up at Auburn and Oregon, and the T Boone Pickens trust really helps. I think also being at football crazy state there like Oklahoma, you can get guys. There's a lot of fantastic players that have come through there for the years. I mean, Falcons offensive coordinator Zach Robinson. Remember watching him in college. He carved us up. He was a great player for the Pokes. Um, I think really the big thing with Gundy is he just does not win enough in Bedlam. Doesn't have enough Big 12 championships. I still think the 11 season they could have won the national championship potentially. Probably not, but like had they been the playoff, it would have been them, LSU, Alabama, and Stanford who made it. And I just kind of feel like Gundy's kind of closer to the end, but like when he was a quarterback there, he's handing the ball off to Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders. Obviously, he was promoted from within once Les Miles left to go take over at LSU. He went from the guy like, I'm a man, I'm 40, to becoming one of the most interesting people in college football, a true one of one. And the one thing that I will say about Gundy, he's very polarizing because obviously, maybe there's some political leanings and stuff there, whatever it is, very cocky. I will say though, I do feel that like he's always got his players back. And I always kind of feel that like he's like the Ollie Gordon arrest with like the DUI and stuff. He took it off. He took the pressure off of him, and I respect that. I always kind of feel that like there's situations that pop up within this program. They attract interesting players. I mean, what Tyreek Hill's played there, Justin Blackman's played there, Chuba Hubbard, Des Bryant. Like they're kind of like the Bengals of college football. That's a great analogy for them. But he's got a very I don't know if it's fatherly. I don't know what it is, but it's a pretty good coach thing. I think there's a lot of people who got a lot of respect for him, and as do I. But he's not number two for a reason because that would be Rich Rodriguez there at West Virginia. The reason I've got Rich Rod here back at his alma mater is because what he did with Steve Slayton and Pat White, Pat McAfee, Owen Schmidt, that era of Mountaineers football, that was that's better than what Gundy's done in the late 2000s with early 2010s at Oklahoma State. Like West Virginia, the Big East era, like that's an era of football that people really think back fondly. Like Louisville was really good there too, but West Virginia was like the creme de la creme of that. And then obviously he had a little bit of success there at Arizona. Did not work out at Michigan, leaving that to replace Lloyd Carr. Had a lot of success at Jacksonville State, and I think just being able to refine yourself. Again, this is a guy who played for Don Nalen, replaced his head coach at WVU. Had a lot of success there, playing for a legend, and again, very polarizing. But what I'm really excited about this with Rich Rod coming back to West Virginia is this is a program that's lost its way in realignment. I think getting some Big East schools back, I think getting Cincinnati in the Big 12 is a big help for them. I think getting UCF in there is a big help as well. But like they were geographically isolated. Like the closest program to them was Iowa State, and they never played. They maybe West Virginia was a better fit, like geographically, to be in the ACC. They would have played Pitt every year. They played Louisville every year. You played what Virginia Tech, Maryland. Like that'd be good, but like the travel. But I've enjoyed seeing West Virginia have interesting games versus Oklahoma and Texas Tech. But now they got a head coach that I think can unlock it. Obviously, we can't go back. We can't go be chasing yesterday. I think that we're going to get a Pat White coming through the door, Steve Slayton. That's not how this works. But you can get a guy in here who I think can bring back some of the stuff. It's all about the players. And I think Jacksonville State was a challenging job, and I think he made it a very respectable job there with the Gamecocks, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do in his second run at WVU as head coach. And number one, without question, is Kirby Smart. It's not close. You won two national titles at Georgia. You've made the playoff, I think, what, like four times now. Had it been a 12-team playoff, he would have made it every year, even a head coach from 17 on, not 16. So many players drafted, so many great games. I think people will talk forever about the 21 Georgia defense. They'll talk about Stetson Bennett. They'll talk about the 22 team being fantastic. Obviously, they'll talk. There's other things about this. Although I understand people out there don't like Georgia, and that's fine. That's you can kiss my ass, but that's okay. Um, I'm not gonna like harbor on this too much or anything like that. But when you are hiring a guy at your alma mater, this is what you're hoping for. And I understand not everybody's alma mater is Georgia. Everybody's alma mater is Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, what have you. But like, when you get a guy there that comes in and he's like, "Oh, I know what this is about," particularly a guy who played at this alma mater when it wasn't as good, like in like '90s era Georgia, not as good as it was now. And just having that wealth of knowledge that the fire inside, you can really. That's why I like Gundy so much. Like maybe Oklahoma's not State's never been that good, but when Gundy's there, he makes a big difference. And there are other coaches who coach at their alma mater. I think there's 6, 7 others. You got Thomas Hammock at Northern Illinois, Deshaun Foster at UCLA, Trent Bray, Oregon State, Michael Desmarais at Ellis or at Louisiana, Raging Cajuns, Ryan Carty at Delaware, Timmy Chang at Hawaii, Tony Sanchez at New Mexico State. It's a lot of people's dream job to coach their alma mater. It's a big deal in college football, and it's a big thing. We had Harbaugh at Michigan. We had David Schatz at Stanford not that long ago. Obviously, but then there's the downside. Scott Frost at Nebraska that can get bad. It goes either way. It's like any hire, you never really know, but it's it is cool to see when it does work out. And the 10 guys I mentioned at the top, it has worked out or is working out. And this is false start. Moving on to our penultimate topic? Yeah, penultimate topic today. We're gonna go with some spring break with Antonio. We keep this really simple. Why not? Maybe I should just, yeah, we got spring break with Antonio. So we are going to West Virginia this weekend. Yeah, on Sat tomorrow we got the West Virginia spring game. We're going to see Rich Rodriguez. So as it is every year, we basically end with bowling, 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 and Antonio just disappears. And then either Cody and I we find him, and he found Cody again. So Cody was going to he told me he was coming back from Hawaii to New Mexico, and he had to check his bag, or like he had to go through security with his bag and everything like that. And it got pulled out through, and they're like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, something's moving in here." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, this is just clothes. All of a sudden, the bag just opened up like a clam, like an oyster shell, and it was Antonio, slowly inflating himself. He pulls out like the like where his wrist is like that's the blood thing. He's just like this, and he comes out in the Honolulu airport, and he goes, "Bulldog." And Cody was like, "Oh no, oh no!" Like he's like, "I got to do work today. We got a work conference, and but we are going to be in Phoenix, so you can go hang out with Kenny D." And he's like, "See." So we we saw Antonio very briefly. We said, "Well, come back after we're done with bowling, and you can party with us a little bit there at the complex that we're at." So we need to get some alcohol. Cody ordered a 30 rack of Bud Light because he looked like Post Malone and Shane Gillis combined, and he felt like he's like, yeah, but we needed it. And we were having issues with the people deliver the alcohol to us. We're like, why is this taking so long? We just ordered it from like the Valero down the street. It's dark, we don't get hit by a car, it's right there. Well, Antonio Banderas came along with the 30 rack and he was ready to party. He pulls out his cowboy hat, and then I got Cody his cowboy hat, and I got the Arizona State podcast cowboy hat I got for her, and we were all partying with the cowboy hats on. Antonio just had a thong. He was saying things to a lot of our colleagues there, mostly Bulldog, and that was it. He saw Quinn Everts do a handstand, and then Antonio was like doing it too, but like walking on his head trying to one up him. He didn't appreciate that, but because he doesn't like it when people think he's better than Antonio, and that's absolutely wild. I know Cody's going to provide a little bit more detail with what went on because I had an early flight. I'm like, Antonio, I have to get up at 4 in the morning to fly back to Atlanta. He's like, okay, bye. And that was that. But yeah, we are going to be going to West Virginia. We're going to go a lot of other places, and they're not having spring games, but we decided that we needed to see Rich Rodriguez, and Pat McAfee's going to be there. He told us Antonio still wants to ride a flaming couch down the street in Morgantown, and I'm praying for him, man. I'm praying for him that it's going to be okay, because he is made of plastic and he has a blow up doll and he's full of hot air, and this is false start. But yeah, going to Morgantown. We're doing this. We got another game coming up there on Friday. I'm trying to think where else we're going, but we'll have more things about that on Thursday's show next week, talking about Antonio. But yeah, I couldn't think of a better place to start off spring break with Antonio than Morgantown, West Virginia. Get to see some ears football, get to see some partying. I mean, it's everything you'd want. You've got football, party, and Antonio and Rich Rodriguez. I don't know if he really knows Rich Rod, but he thinks that he can go fast. He thinks Rich Rodriguez is like a NASCAR driver. He calls him Vroom Vroom, and I'm like, okay, that's another word in the Antonio vocabulary that we got to be prepared for. And We'll never know if he wants to drive fast to Georgia or if he wants to hang out with Rich Rodriguez, but that's what a vroom vroom means now. But yeah, we're going to be doing this a little bit more throughout the rest of the month with the spring games and stuff. And then we'll put Antonio back in the closet and get ready for Farmageddon. And he knows about this. He's been playing Farmageddon for us for a while. Because again, he finances all these trips. And for better or worse, that's what happens. And I'm going to move on to our last topic here of the day with some we're still driving Cavender replacement topic for one that let's just say ethically we couldn't do it involving JLN with given who the artist is and what's going on in the news today. So we're not going to do that. But we are going to be talking about a guy who likes to drive in and around Atlanta with cars that don't belong to him. TJ Finley, quarterback at apparently Tulane now, played at Auburn, played at Texas State, played at LSU. First off, I can't believe he's still in college football. Second off, like I think he got pulled over saying that he bought this car in Atlanta, but like the plates and the tags didn't match up. Obviously, John Summerall had to talk about this and everything. And obviously it's an unfortunate situation. It kind of broke last yesterday evening and everything like that. The big thing that I want to say regarding TJ Finley, I almost said Antonio. Jesus, I'm so rusty. I'm so shot. I'm so broken. But the big thing that I want to explain here with this is a very big year for John Summerall. It's also a very big year for TJ Finley. Like, how much football do you have left? Summerall, it's like, I know you got an extension, but like, what if alma mater? What if Kentucky opens? Are you ready to go back to Lexington? Are the Greenies going to be good enough to win the Group of Five? They've been in and around it for a while. For them to have as good of a first season under him with largely Willie Fritz's players, given that Fritz went to Houston, like that's a big deal. That's a big deal for sure. And I don't know, like with Finley and everything like that, it just kind of shows like again, it goes back to what I was saying about Drew Pyne earlier, that when you're transferring this much, you just lose sense of reality. You know, you throw cars, NIL and everything in there. Like I didn't even know he's still playing in college football. I didn't even know about this. I had to read this headline to make sure it wasn't an April Fool's joke. I think that is the one advantage to not working or to not writing this past week for the most part is like I didn't have to work April Fool's Day, which is the worst day of the year. I hate it. Um, Occasionally you'll get got, but we're not going to get got here on false start. Just to tie a bow on this with TJ Finley for a minute is there were moments there when he was at Auburn and LSU. I'm like, this could be interesting. Even Texas State a little bit, but I don't even know what program he's on anymore. Maybe he played for another one. Just really moving around, and I feel bad for everything with this. Sucks. Um, just to probably tie a bow on anything with just because so many guys are moving, the cars are getting out of hand. Like, I don't think NIL's helping. Even if this may have been confiscated from somebody else, I don't really know. Honestly, care. But we're just kind of I think we're kind of living in a society where we just need some like instant gratification. And if we come up with the first sign of adversity or the first bit of bad news, that we just shrivel up and cry and go to our safe space. And I understand that like we can be more vulnerable as human beings. It's not just a feminine trait. That was a big thing we learned about in our summit. I never really thought of it that way. I just thought that's just a human trait, but people mislabel that. So that's what women should do. Um, but I don't know. I guess like I mean, also I learned I got to be more empathetic. Maybe I'm not the most like empathetic person in the world. I'm just working. I'm just going and going. I don't have time to have feelings about these things. The but I do think that the transfer portal era, like now being like a full like what a full like academic or like a college tenure for somebody to be in the portal, like where it's so common now with NIL. You kind of wonder like it's going to be shaping the experiences of these young men's lives so much. Look, I don't think that there's people who are just regular students like transferring a bunch. But like, are you really better off like thinking that like the grass is going to be greener somewhere else? Maybe there's no grass. Maybe you have to grow the grass. Maybe you have to take care of the grass. I'm not saying we're all going to go pro in something other than sports in terms of like landscaping, but like, you know, the grass is green where you water it. This was episode 164 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow my absent-minded, absent co-host Cody Williams at the Sizzle 20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a five-star review on Apple. Subscribe, tell all your friends. We really want to pick this thing up. We want to get like as many subscribers as possible, really have some interesting interaction with you guys heading into football season. Very, very excited about all of that. I'm so unbelievably shot, so unbelievably cooked, and hopefully we'll come back here with a little more juice and firepower here on Monday. But also if you have something that scares you, you should do it. There's people at fan side that were saying like, I was on the fence about going to Phoenix. I'm a very much an introverted person. I'm not. I talk like for well, I talk for like 5 hours a week, mostly to myself apparently now, for Hawaii and Antonio reasons. But like I stammer sometimes, I slur my words, I speak with a slight Southern accent. Um, I don't know, I sound like a stoner a lot of times. There's things about my voice and appearance that like it's not on brand, it's not clean cut. But that's not what this show is about. This show is about giving hard-hitting insight to the best of the ability, just to make yourself smarter, hang out with your friends, or dumber. Either way, more entertaining. Just not boring. We don't do boring here on False Start. We just do False Start, and this is False Start.